Hi, Saints. This is Mina Lee coming to you from Faithful Walk Healing Ministries. First, let me say shalom to those who are aware of. We are dealing with the Jewish feast at this time. Rosh Hashanah has just passed, which is the Feast of Trumpets, and soon we'll be coming up on Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement, if I'm not mistaken. So shalom to all of you who are celebrating the feast with us. Faithful Walk Healing Ministries definitely recognizes the Jewish feast, and it is definitely a time of fasting, a time of giving, and a time of reflecting. So to all of you, happy high holy days for the ones that have just passed and for the ones that are upcoming between the dates of September 4th through the 14th. The reason why I'm coming to you today, Saints, is because I just want to make some quick headlines and talk about a few things that I had spoke about briefly on the Watchman on the Wall meeting that we had just this past August 30th. First and foremost, for those of you who are joining me today, I'm recording this on September 10th. It is the day before 9/11. And there are some very interesting headlines that have come out today. One that really, I think, shocked a lot of people, and that was the headline that Assad, who is the president over Syria, has decided that he is going to turn over all of his chemical weapons to the Russian affiliation. So a lot of people, I've seen a lot of headlines today that have said this may silence the war drums that we're beating here in the United States. But I just want to make a few points to everyone in regards to this. First and foremost, the one thing we must remember, and we've kind of gotten caught away with it, I mean, I myself is probably guilty of it, because we have the Obama administration who is beating war drums in regards to Syria. We must remember that Isaiah 17, which predicts the destruction of Damascus, along with the Psalm 83 war, we must remember is something that is accomplished by Israel and not the United States. So we shouldn't be of total surprise when we have, so to speak, monkey wrenches thrown into the plans as the one that we found out today. Because we must remember that Isaiah 17 will come to pass through Israel, not through the United States. It is predicted that Israel will strike against Damascus and that it will basically be a heap of ruins in one day or one night. So that leaves us with what we're currently dealing with right now. And in my last video, I was saying, it really doesn't matter who are playing the chess pieces. The fact of the matter is that we're looking at a checkmate, checkmate, checkmate. And I still stand by that, Saints, because of the simple fact that we know that this prophecy is going to come to pass. Between Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, we know that all of this brings us to the doorsteps of the end of the age. And so we know that this stuff is going to come to pass. Now, right now, we stand in a balance. Assad, who has decided that he is going to give up his chemical weapons to Russia, we know has to be a game. First and foremost, let's look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this. Russia is backing Assyria. We already know that Putin and Assad are buddies, plain and simple. We also know that there is a tit for tat between Putin and Obama. Now, where their relationship went sour, I'm not sure, because just a year or some change ago, in one of the meetings with the Prime Minister of Russia, if you all remember or recall, you can look this up on YouTube because I believe it's still on there. There was a time where President Obama was meeting with the Prime Minister of Russia and he was whispering to him and he forgot to turn his mic off. And he leans over to him and he tells him, to tell Putin that he would have more freedom to move when he's elected into his second term. So he was asking him to just be patient. And the prime minister of Russia at that time, nodded his head in agreement. And at that time, everyone was saying, what was it that President Obama was promising? What was he promising them? Well, we don't know. We don't know, but does it play into where we're at today? Strong possibility. Because whatever went down, we know that they have been back and forth, tit for tat. We know this whole issue about Snowden and the NSA leak, and he went over to Russia, and Russia decided to grant him asylum. And that ticked, you better believe it ticked the Obama administration off, okay? So all of this stuff is going back and forth. Putin said he is not giving a side up. That is his buddy. Of course, he uncovered the fact that the Obama regime was basically arming the rebels, and he had the video sent out, which was on the blazetv.com, and I also posted on my Keeping Up with the Signs of the Times page, where I posted a video where the Syrian rebels who were fighting were killing their enemies and cutting their bodies open and ripping out their lungs, their livers, and their hearts and eating it on amateur video. People were recording this with their cell phones. And this is what they were saying was going to happen to any of their enemies. In addition to that, I have another amateur video where it shows where there's these young boys between the ages of 10 and 12 who, I guess, presented or represented Assad, and they were shot to death. They were sat down on their knees and they opened fire on a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old for basically supporting Assad. This is what's going on in the country of Syria. Putin, who is definitely, don't mistake it, is definitely the devil. However, I used to have this old saying, the devil is not your friend. When he gets through using you or using whoever to turn against one person, he will turn around and turn against that person. The devil is not your friend. The devil is all in for himself. I don't care how much he promises you. I don't care how much he lies to you and tells you he's going to give you a grand event of things. The devil is a liar. He's always been a liar. He always will be a liar, and he's not your friend. And so the thing is that Putin has definitely, in some sense, turned his back or betrayed Obama, but Obama has done the same thing to Putin. So really, what we think is the Syrian war that we're really up against Russia. And that's what a lot of people are not realizing. The Syrian war has nothing to do with us, saints. It has everything to do with Israel. It has everything to do with the Middle East. It has everything that I believe to do with the sign or one of those final things that are going to happen before the Antichrist rises up and does the 7-year peace treaty in the Middle East. But we, the United States, we are up against Russia, and we don't realize it yet. So I just wanted to bring that highlight out to everyone. We need to keep our eyes peeled because something fishy is definitely going on with this situation. And I was discussing some things with my husband and last week, and we were talking about just kind of mapping out some things. Now, I'm definitely controversial. I speak the truth, and I also speak what's on my mind. So, here's my theory. There's a lot of talk out there that Obama is the Antichrist. Do I believe that? I think it's a strong possibility, but I also think that it's still a possibility that he's not. So here's Mina's theory. Now, hear what I say. This is Mina's theory. This is not the Bible. This is not what the Holy Spirit has given me. This is my theory. My theory is this. If Obama is the Antichrist, here's the map I want to drop for you all. Him wanting to go in and strike Syria is a part of continuing this Arab Spring. It's continuing to disturb whatever little bit of peace is left in the Middle East that started 2 years ago in February of 2011. Why is that so important? Well, if he is the Antichrist, here's the point. If he continues, if the war and chaos and terrorism and what have you continues in the Middle East, the people are going to cry out for peace. They're going to cry out for a leader to come and help them, because it's too many people are going to die. Too many people have already died, but people are going to continue to die, and it's going to pressure Israel more and more and more and surround her more and more. And that will be the perfect opportunity for the Antichrist to step in and make that peace treaty. If he is the Antichrist, and I said if, then this would be definitely a door opener or a gatekeeper, the Syria conflict, for basically a Middle East war to break out, which will give prompt opportunity for the Antichrist to step in and do the peace treaty. But let me tell you why that statement still stands even if he's not the Antichrist. The thing is, saints, is that he is tied in to Saudi Arabia, whether we believe it or not, okay? And I have some information, inside information, that I have proof of these types of things. So it is a fact that Saudi Arabia has no military defense. Saudi Arabia has oil. They have loads of oil and loads of money, but they don't have a military defense. This administration is tied to Saudi Arabia, definitely. There's a lot of shady things that's been going on that underneath a lot of American noses with the Saudis, okay? There is a rumor, and I just said it's a rumor, but it may be true. I have read and do a lot of research. I read a lot of headlines. I do a lot of my own FBI investigation, so to speak, about things going on in the world and just different people's theories and concepts and things of that nature. So there is a theory or rumor that there is a man who is in Saudi Arabia who is very low-key right now. And based off of his history, based off of his beliefs and his tactics, he is looked at by a certain amount of people as being the potential Antichrist. And that he is basically laying low until the right time. Because this administration is tied to the Saudis, it is still very much a possibility that they are basically the puppet master of our administration to play out this war in the Middle East, or to start it so that they can step in, them being the whoever this possible Antichrist is, to step in and do a peace treaty. Makes plenty of sense to me. So again, this is just my theory of what could possibly be happening, but we don't know for sure. And the whole point is that I don't want to be here to find out, because all of that is going to take place after the rapture of the bride. So Mina does not plan on being here. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there and let everybody know that that's definitely a theory. And it could very, very well possibly happen. So I'm going to leave you with that. All right. What I wanted to talk to you all about today is something that has been in my mind for several weeks now. Actually, roughly about a month. I want to talk to you all about the 10th Jubilee. Now, for those of you who are not aware of this, there's a lot of people who are actually very aware of this. I'm going to be reading a little bit of information to you. So if you see me kind of look to the side, it's because I'm reading some stuff that I had printed out so that I don't misquote anything. There is a rabbi who lived roughly in 1200, 11th and 12th century, or more like, yes, the 11th and 12th century. I said that right. Okay. His name was Rabbi Judah Ben Samuel. And he wrote or predicted the 10 Jubilees. Okay, so again, Rabbi, what he was saying was that he predicted these 10 Jubilees, and at the 10th Jubilee, the Messiah would appear. Let me just explain something to you. Again, for those of you who do not know. So we have Orthodox and even some conservative Jews, people who practice Judaism, basically are the Jewish people, and some non-Jewish people who believe that the Messiah has not yet come and that they are still looking for the coming of the first Messiah. Now, the Messianic Jews, like my husband, who's a Messianic Jew, for those of you who do not know, and then others out there who are very well-known Jewish people like Rabbi A.K. Snyder of Discovering the Jewish Jesus, Jonathan Burris, the Jewish Voice, Sid Roth. These are Messianic Jews, okay? Even those who know my good friends, Rabbi Steve Ben Danoon. Messianic Jews believe that Jesus is the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach, and that he is returning again. Okay, just to clear that out. So, where we're dealing with is this particular person, Judah Ben Samuel. He was an Orthodox Jew, Orthodox rabbi, who lived in the 11th and 12th century, but he had a very, very profound prediction of 10 Jubilees. Now, he himself, he died in the year 1217. Now, I'm going to read some information for you in this. Now, this man believed that in 1217, or the year that he died, it was a year of Jubilee. Jubilee comes around every 50 years, okay? And it is found, now don't quote me on this, but I believe it was in the book of Deuteronomy that talks about the 49th and then the 50th year, how it was a year of rest. It was a year that you didn't till your soil. It was a year where you just basically, you let the ground rest, you rest, and, debts would be paid off, just the whole 9 yards. So that was a year of Jubilee. Came every 50 years, very significant year, definitely. So the book of Jubilees, for those of you who know, it is an extra biblical book, but it was written by Moses. It's more to be like a very detailed account of the book of Genesis, but the difference is that it is accounting of the years for instance, like the year of the Noah's flood, the year Isaac was born, the year Moses sacrificed him, the year the 12 tribes, and so on and so forth. It's their years. So like it would be like in the year 1650, the flood, 1650 years after Adam left the garden, the flood took place. So extra biblical book, you can check it out if yourself. It's called the Book of Jubilees, written by Moses, was not included in the biblical text of the 66 books that the King James and his people put together. However, it was a book that was definitely recognized by the rabbis and by the people of old, and even some parts of the Vatican. Okay, another story. But just to explain to you, Jubilee is every 50 years. So, now I'm going to read my information. So, in 1217, Rabbi Judah Ben Samuel, he died. It was a Jubilee year. Okay, if he was right, that would also make the year 1517 a Jubilee year. Now, this is what happened. Exactly, it reads, and I'm reading this to you. Exactly 400 years after the Ottoman Turks took control of Jerusalem, and in 1517, they were driven out of the Holy Land in 1917 by the Allied forces under the command of General George Allenby on Hanukkah, by the way. But it gets more interesting. So we've got 1217 to 1517. So what's the difference? Okay. So it was a prediction that the Ottoman Empire would take over during this time. Now, I'm going to read some more information to you all. It continues. It says, the rabbi also prophesied that during the Ninth Jubilee, Jerusalem would be a no man's land. This is exactly what happened from 1917 to 1967 due to the fact that the Holy Land was placed under the British mandate in 1917 by the League of Nations and literally belonged to no nation. And even after Israel's War of Independence in the 1948-49 era, Jerusalem was still divided by a strip of land running right through the heart of the city, with the Jordans controlling the eastern part of the city and Israel controlling the western part of the city. And this strip of land was considered and even called no man's land by both the Israelis and the Jordanians. It was not until the Six-Day War in 1967 when the entire West Bank of the Holy Land was conquered by the Israeli army and the whole city of Jerusalem passed back into the possession of Israel. So once again, prophecy made by the rabbis 750 years previously was fulfilled to the letter. It certainly would be significant if indeed both 1917 and 1967 were Jubilee years, considering the significance of what happened in Jerusalem on those years, but it gets even better. The rabbi also prophesied that during the 10th Jubilee, Jerusalem would be under control of the Jews and that the Messianic end times would begin. The 10th Jubilee began in 1967 and will conclude in 2017. Okay, so I read that all to you. I wanted you all to hear this. Again, maybe several of you are already aware of this, but then I know there are several of you who are not aware of this. I'm throwing this in for a reason. I like to do numbers. I love numbers for this simple fact. I want everybody to know that God is like the perfect mathematician. You go through the Bible, God is a God of numbers. I mean, there's a meaning behind every number. When you look at the Hebrew alphabet, behind every letter is a numerical value. And so even in the name of God, the name of Yeshua, the name of Adam and Eve, there are numerical meanings behind the letters and the names. And so we have numbers of 7, we have numbers of 40 and 3 and 6 and 4 and all of these different things, and they have very significant meanings. Okay, so I believe that God operates in numbers. Nothing is coincidence. Nothing is just so happened to be. Everything was mapped out from the beginning of time to the end of time. It was all set in perfection. And this is something that I have talked to the Lord about, and He has emphasized to me about definitely over the years, and just really expanded even more so knowledge as far as how He works in numbers. So the reason why I think this is so significant is this. So according to this rabbi's prediction, who lived back in the in the 1200s, that there would be 10 jubilees. And during the 10th jubilee would be the time that the Messiah the end times in the Messiah would come, not return. For us, it would be return. So we're looking at 1967, which was the Yom Kippur War, which is when Jerusalem was taken back by Israel and became the capital of the nation. 70 years from that not 70 years, 50 years from that, perfectly. Is it 50 years? Yes. Is 2017. And 50 is the number of Jubilee. So it is a time of rest. Now, why is it significant? Well, people could say in 2010 that meant that the tribulation was going to start at some point in 2001. Thus, we have 7 years. Thus, Jesus Christ would return in 2017, which would be a Jubilee year. Of course, we're still here, and this is almost the end of 2013, so we know that didn't get played out. But this is why I don't want to disregard this extra biblical type prophecy. 2017, saints, is a very significant year. And so is 2014 and 2015. We have the blood moons that are coming up, 2014, 2015, the tetrads in April and October of 2014, and then again April and October of 2015. And it's the last tetrad that is set, according to NASA, to come out between now and the year 3000. And tetrad again has to fall on the Jewish feast. And according to history, there has been roughly 7 or 8 other tetrads in the last 5,000 years. Okay, so we covered that. In 2017, I did this on my video back in April called the Watchman on the Wall Report, where I actually present the picture of what is going to happen in 2017. And I touched on this a little bit, I think in my last video, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so in 2017, we've got the constellation of Virgo that is going to be in the sky. She's going to be crowned with 12 stars above her head. The moon will be at her feet, and she will give birth to the planet Jupiter, which is called the king planet, which is also one of the planets that was went together during the time of Christ's birth, which is the Bethlehem star. They were 3 planets. It was Jupiter, Venus, and a star called Rigel. And those 3 came together to form the bright star, which became the star over Bethlehem. Okay, and that was the planets and stars that the Magi, who people today call the wise men, followed and found the Christ child. Okay, so September 22nd and 23rd of 2017, this prophetic event, which is mentioned in Revelation chapter 12, will actually be in the sky in its perfect form. There has never been any other time like this. I think, or I take that back. There is a rumor, and I'm not sure, I have not confirmed this, that this happened during the birth of Christ, that's how it was positioned. But it hasn't happened since then, and they don't have it happening in the next 3,000-4,000 years again. So it is very significant that Revelation chapter 12, according to what the Apostle John saw, will actually be perfectly positioned in the sky during the month of September in 2017. Now, my theory is this. My theory is that because we can't find this again for another 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, and we don't have that kind of time left before Jesus returns, I do believe that this is very significant to Revelation chapter 12, and that is something that we should not ignore. It's a sign. But here's the deal. That sign is during the tribulation. It is, in fact, right before the midpoint of the tribulation, which is Revelation chapter 13, when the Antichrist breaks his 7-year peace treaty. He causes all great and small, rich and poor, to receive the mark in their forehead and in their hand, and no one can buy or sell. Okay, so Revelation chapter 13 is roughly midpoint of the tribulation. It is 3.5 years after the 7-year peace treaty, where all hell breaks loose, basically. Okay, so Revelation chapter 12 happens before Revelation chapter 13. If it's a year before, if it's 6 months before, or 2 weeks before, I have no idea. But Revelation chapter 12 is definitely during the tribulation. So what does that have to do with this prediction? 2017, according to this rabbi, is supposed to be a year of Jubilee, which would definitely be 50 years, whether we listen to this prophetic word or not. It's definitely 50 years since Jerusalem was captured, which was in 1967. Okay? So, whether 2017 is a year of Jubilee according to this rabbi or not, it's still a year of Jubilee from the time that Jerusalem had become the capital of Israel. Okay. The reason why I believe this is this, or believe this extra biblical prophecy, if you want to call it, is this. Because if we go back to Revelation chapter 12, that is the chapter where, of course, there's the woman, but there's a war in heaven. Satan gets kicked out of heaven. He's thrown down to the earth. And then the abomination of desolation comes. Okay, it's a big it's a chapter with a lot of information. It talks about the woman was able to flee into the mountains. She's given 2 wings as eagles. She's flown into the mountains, and she's taken care of for 1,260 days, which is exactly 3.5 years to the prom, according to the Jewish calendar. Because, mind you, the Jewish calendar has 360 days and not 365 as the Gregorian calendar, which is what we follow, has. Okay, so 1,260 days is exactly 3.5 years to the T, which means that she will be taken care of for the remainder 3.5 years. Now, if we go back to Matthew chapter 24, Jesus clearly states, when you see the abomination of desolation in his temple, and he's talking about it based off of the book of Daniel, he's saying that no one is to go back to their house. You're not to even, go back inside. You're not to go get your coat or your staff or anything. You're to basically stop what you're doing and flee. Run for your life, okay? Because of the trouble that is coming up on the land behind that situation. Now, let me not lose you too much. At that point, the abomination of desolation is definitely when the Antichrist sets up shop in the new temple and he declares himself God. Prior to that, what is it that makes the Jews and the Muslims and whoever else accept the fact that the Antichrist is basically God? I believe that whoever the Antichrist really is, it doesn't matter whether he's, administration or somebody tucked away in the mountains of Saudi Arabia or Greece or Turkey. It doesn't matter. The point is that he will be looked at as a savior at first by everyone, Jews and Gentiles alike. He will be looked at as a savior, possibly 2 things. The Mahdi that the Arabs are looking for, the Mahdi and or the 12th Imam, same person, who has, if you read, which most Christians haven't read, but I've dove into it, the Quran, the characteristics of the Mahdi or the 12th Imam is the same parallel characteristics as the Antichrist mentioned in the book of Revelation. Coincidence? Nah, I don't think so. Now, in addition to that, we know that the Jews are looking for the first Messiah because they have rejected Jesus Christ. And it's prophesied in the book of Zechariah, I believe, that talks about how when he comes, how they will all look upon him and they will see the one whom they pierced and they will mourn. They will mourn because they will realize that they missed it for 2,000 years. But it is also predicted in Romans that once the fulfillment of the Gentiles comes in, that all of Israel will be saved. The rest of Israel basically is the remnant because unfortunately a lot of the Jewish people are also going to die during the tribulation. Okay, not to get too much off course. So, what I believe is this. Now, this is just Mina's theory again. We're going back to Mina's theory. I believe that 2017 is a very significant year and that this rabbi who lived back in the 1200s was on key with even this one. Because I believe that it will signify the time where they really will believe that all peace and safety has come to Israel through the Antichrist who has basically signed this false peace treaty and tricked the whole world into believing that he is a savior. But we know the scripture says that as soon as they say peace and safety, that sudden destruction will come upon them. There are even prophecies, I believe it's in the book of Isaiah, I think it is, that talks about a time where Israel will be without walls. We know that's not the case now, because if they took down their walls between the Palestinians and the Iranians and everybody else, they'd be wiped off the face of the planet. So the time without walls or gates or borders would definitely be a time of peace. And it's a time also predicted that Israel will flourish with wealth. And if for those of you don't follow the news, several months ago this year, there was an article out where Israel had hit something like 83 trillion cubic tons, I think it was, of natural gas. So, which will make them completely independent of any foreign trade for gas. There's also a rumor that they're also sitting on a whop load of oil. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much off into that, but whatever it is, the prophecy, we know the prophecy is true. We know God written it because it was predestined from the beginning. From the way it ends is how it began, and how it began is how it will end, because everything is a full circle. That's what it's all about. That's why the world is round. That's why the planet's around. That's why God says, I'm Alpha and Omega, beginning and end, first and last. When you draw a circle, once you close it, you can't tell where you began it or where you ended it, because it's a full circle. That's why King Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. So, with all of that said, I believe that 2017 will definitely be a year during the tribulation. It will be a time where, right before the abomination of desolation, it will be a time where Israel will be in a 7-year peace treaty. It will be a time of that Israel will be without walls, without borders, and that she and her inhabitants therein will believe that peace has come, and that the Messiah, their first Messiah, who they think is going to come in, only to find out that it would be a trick of the devil. And then they will see the abomination of desolation that we see and hear and read about in Revelation chapter 13. He will break his peace treaty, and he will send out the mark of the beast, and basically all hell is going to break loose for those last 3.5 years, which is called the Great Tribulation and Jacob's trouble, and the great and terrible day of the Lord. So that is my theory on that. I think we should pay close attention to that, but here's the deal. If that is true, saints, if my theory is true, this is what we must pay attention to. We must pay attention to the fact that if Revelation chapter 12 is right before the midpoint of the tribulation, and that is appearing in our skies physically, according to NASA, in the year 2017, if it is right before the midpoint of tribulation, if we go back 3 years, saints, it puts us at 2014. If it's 2 years out, and chapter 13 is the midpoint, and I'm just throwing these figures out there, it puts us to 2015. Either way, it puts us close, and I think it's significant because both 2014 and 2015 are years of the blood tetrad, or the tetrads, or the blood moons. And it has always been an omen of war. It's always been an omen harbinger, so to speak, to Israel in all the years prior. And I do stand firm, no matter what the headlines are saying, that between 2014 and 2015, we will see the fulfillment of the Isaiah 17 prophecy, along with the fulfillment of the Psalm 83 war. And I do believe, as what the Lord has given to many of his prophets and ministers and brothers and sisters in Christ, that this will be the final sign before the rapture of the church, which will prompt the 7-year tribulation. I'm a firm believer in that, which means in the end, saints, we don't have a lot of time. I do believe that the next several months between now and April of next year is a very significant time. I believe personally that we're going to see some cataclysmic things unfold within the next 8 months that are going to happen on this planet among several nations, whether it's the war in Syria, whether it's these prophetic dreams that people have had of natural disasters coming, whether something happens to us as a nation, I don't know. But I do believe that we need to pay attention to the next 8 months. I think we need to prepare both physically and spiritually. Spiritually first, which means don't be afraid. Make sure your oils are filled. Secure your relationship in Jesus Christ, so that you hear his instructions on what he wants you to do in the event of what's going to unfold. And then physically, we should not be foolish. We shouldn't be building our treasures here. There was a prophetic word that went forth, and I'm just going to share it with you all. You all can take this and do with it as you please. But this is what I believe is words of wisdom. And that is this, we need to clear out our debts. We need to stash some cash. The banks, I believe the banks are going to eventually fail. I think that there's another major economic collapse that has come this way that's going to make 2008 seem like rock candy, literally. And, God has given me several dreams about it. He's given many other people prophetic words, dreams, and visions about it as well. I believe that we should have some cash on hand, even stock up on your food. I'm not saying go out here and become a doomsday prepper and dig trenches and holes in your backyards. And, I'm not saying become afraid, but we need to be wise. And, we need to be wise and understand the season and the time that we're in so that we're not caught off guard. You don't want to be, left outside in the dark knocking on somebody's door because you don't have a flashlight. You don't want that. So we should be wise on what we should do. We should prepare, especially if we have families. We should prepare. Don't rely on your jobs and your people. Don't rely on the government. Rely on Jesus Christ, because he is the unshakable thing. He is the solid thing. He is the rock. And, the Bible clearly states, King David said it, the psalmist, he said, I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor a seed begging for bread. It does say in the scriptures that in times of famine, that God's children will have more than enough. Again, that isn't to say that we should be foolish and, spend all our money, because God's going to take care of us. We're not to put the Lord thy God to the test. He gives us wisdom for a reason. Wisdom is the number one of the 8 gifts of the Spirit. And my mom said the reason why wisdom's at the top is because you need wisdom to operate in the remaining 8. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The scripture says that my people perish because of lack of wisdom. He didn't say people perish. He said my people perish. So there are a lot of children that belong to the Lord who lack wisdom. And because of that, you end up going through some devastating things because of not making the proper decisions. And you ask yourself, what is the proper decision? The proper decision is to seek the Lord for the proper decision. That's what you do. But I think we should be prepared. Definitely. The Lord has given me dreams about stocking up food supplies. I'm not a doomsday prepper or none of that, but he's come to me recently and told me, I want you to stock up on these things that I know you like, and these are non-perishable things. He said, because, the time will come where we won't be able to buy them. And this is wisdom, saints. I was down in Houston during Hurricane Katrina. Even though it didn't hit us, it hit the people next to us, which New Orleans was only 3 hours from us. That same year later on, in the month of September 2005, Hurricane Rita came up the coastline, aimed straight for Houston. I evacuated with my children at that time. I lived down in Houston for 12 years. You prepare. It would be unwise to not prepare. And so just like something like that, the reason why all those people died during Hurricane Katrina was not because of Bush, or not because of FEMA. It was because the people were told to leave and they wouldn't. I can tell you firsthand because I was down there. I had family and friends down there. And so they wouldn't leave. And so, when we don't heed to wise counsel, the Bible says that a fool despises wise counsel. When we despise wise counsel, saints, we end up perishing, or things around us end up perishing. So again, it's about preparation. It's not about being afraid. It's not about going to an extreme. It's about being wise. So I will leave you all with that. I just had to come back and do this video and just kind of touch bases with everybody in regards. A lot of stuff is unfolding. It is very, very exciting times. Um, we should definitely keep our eye on the prize and pay attention to what's going on. I mean, it's just plain and simple as that. So thank you for letting me into your homes today. Again, Faithful Walk Healing Ministries website is faithfulwalkhealingministries.blogspot.com. Look and tune in to us on Thursday nights. I can't get all my stuff together today. I apologize. Tune in to us on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Bible study. We're actually currently in the book of Revelation, saints. So the Lord gave me that about roughly 7 weeks ago. So we're going through the book of Revelation chapter by chapter. And God has given some profound revelation. We definitely always have room for questions and comments at the end of Bible study. So if you feel like joining us, you can go to our website. At the bottom of that page has all the information of how you can join us via phone conference if you are not in the DC metropolitan area. If you are in the DC metropolitan area and you want to stop in and join us, you feel free to do that. We are here every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next Watchman on the Wall meeting is Friday, October 18th, Lord willing, that we are not raptured, and it will be roughly at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tell your friends and family. Thank you so much again. I pray the peace of the Lord be upon you. Shalom and good night.